Hello, people. This is Mac. Today with you, coming to you with my co-host and friend Bob. How are you doing today, Bob?
I'm doing just fine, Mac. Thank you. How are you?
Doing great, Bob. I just had a very enjoyable day at a soccer game, so I'm kind of chilled from that. I really enjoyed myself there. Hot sun, great vitamin D. We love that. But Bob, we've had some very interesting things to come up this past week, and and I'm just you know trying to figure out what we should talk about first here. And I know that we've had things going on with the lawmakers are pushing to limit the U.S. president nuclear authority, and Pentagon leaks and undermine trust of U.S. allies, states former officials. But one of the things that kind of touched me a little bit is the situation in Nashville, Tennessee, where one of the two black Democrats, actually, Justin Jones and Justin Pearson, they were expelled last week from the GOP-led Tennessee House, uh, and one was reinstated. One of the two, I believe, that was Justin Jones. He was reinstated. Went through some special proceeding they had with their uh, council people there in Nashville. They got him right back in there after 4 days of being of the expulsion. Uh, I believe it was the Nashville Governing Council voted to send him straight back to the legislature. They tell us. And the unanimous vote by that Nashville Metropolitan Council took only a few minutes to restore Representative Jones to office, just 4 days, as I stated, after the Republicans stripped him of his seat. Now, moments later, Jones marched to the Capitol several blocks away. He took the oath of office on the steps, and he entered the building while supporters sang "This Little Light of Mine." A loud round of applause erupted as Jones walked into the chamber with Democratic Representative Gloria Johnson, who was also targeted for expulsion, but spared by one vote, and she was the white person who did not.
Mr. Speaker, I want to welcome the people back to the people's house. I want to welcome democracy back to the people's house. That on last Thursday, members of this body tried to crucify democracy, but today we stand as a witness of a resurrection of a movement of a multiracial democracy that no unjust decision will stand. And that this represents the point that there comes a time where time itself is ready for a change, that time has come back here in Nashville, Tennessee. That truth crushed to the ground will rise again, that what you intend for evil can be used for good, to restore the heart of democracy in our state. And so I come here to stand with my constituents, with the people of Tennessee, to say that no unjust attack on democracy will happen unchallenged. That the abuse of this body will not happen in the comfort of silence. And so I come here, most importantly, though, not as an individual, but I come here to say that the people of District 52, 78,000 people, have a voice in this chamber once again. I'm hopeful for the days ahead for Tennessee, not because of the actions of this body, but because of the actions of the people out there and the thousands gathered outside this chamber right now who are calling for something better, who responded to your attacks on democracy with an attack of a mass movement for social justice and racial justice and economic justice to restore the heart of our state. And so I want to thank you all, not for what you did, but for awakening the people of this state, particularly the young people. Thank you for reminding us that the struggle for justice is fought and won in every generation. And so the people of Tennessee, I stand with you. We will continue to be your voice here, and no expulsion, no attempt to silence us will stop us, but it will only galvanize and strengthen our movement. And we continue to show up in the people's house. Power to the people.
Well, Bob, that was That was the Representative Jones right there. He given his talk. I mean, he's a great. Sound like he's a pretty good speaker. I've heard him when he got expelled also to give a long, very nice speech there. But I'm just wondering, Bob, just why are they pushing for this and galvanizing all of these people together? I mean, first of all, they tell me that guns don't kill, people kill. Nobody, the Democrats are talking about getting rid of all of the weapons and everything. But what about their promotion of these people in the LGBTQ community? And this woman, they don't talk about that. This woman was a member of that, a transgender or something to that effect. She had some emotional issues, Bob, and they don't want to face up to the fact that they are pushing all of this out on the society and on the kids and people who are weak-minded. They go and do some extreme things like this, change their gender or whatever, and they suffer from emotional illness. And I think this is part of what caused that situation there in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist or anything like that, but I must admit that I did take quite a few psychology courses in college. Matter of fact, I took enough where I probably could have majored in it, but I did have a minor, enough for a minor anyway. But my point of this discussion right here, we have, as black people in this country, and I mean white people too, but in black people in particular is what I want to address here. And I'm sure that you have some points you'd like to make on that. But my first thing is, why aren't we galvanizing these young men for reparations? And you might have a point on why aren't we galvanizing them to fight and stop the killings in the black communities. So why don't you touch on that, Bob, and let me know your thoughts on this fight to take away the Second Amendment.
Well, Mac, thank you again. And to your audience, I would say this. I don't think you need a psychology degree or be a psychiatrist or psychoanalyst to realize that America is a sick nation. The world is a sick world. I don't think you have to study any of these things. I think all you have to do is look within yourself and realize some of the sick thoughts that you or I as an individual has. None of us are perfect.
That's out of order.
And those people that killed Jesus, they were sick. Jesus was sick. All human beings are sick to some extent. It's just a degree of your illness. And so what I see coming out in the world today, because we've got so many people in America, and the sickness starts at the top. And so as a result, when you have these little disturbances like the one there in Tennessee, and this guy said it himself, 78,000 people that he represents. Why, if he wanted to do something about the guns, first of all, he's a black representative. I don't know how many of his 78,000 people that he represents in his district are black, but let's just assume that there's a 50-50 district, 50 black and 50 white. Why can't he start a movement within his district to collect the weapons within his district? And then perhaps that might start a movement within Tennessee to start all over districts all over Tennessee. And that could then start a movement in the whole United States. But no, they don't do that. And he's a black representative. And 5-6 years ago, when all of the killing was going on in Chicago and continues to go on in Chicago and here in Detroit and other big cities, you don't see black so-called political leaders standing up saying, we need to take these guns off the street. Start in your neighborhood if you're serious about that. But they're not serious about it. This is all a lot of brouhaha to keep their jobs.
Well,
And
what?
those what?
Well, right. I agree with that, Bob. But what about the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms? I mean, I know they talk about some of these people are probably talking about AR-15s, automatic weapons, but I mean, these you could still get those weapons anyway. But what about the Second Amendment? It doesn't say anything about whether it was a musket at that time. That if they want to take weapons away from the people, you can't just go out and say you take away the AR-15 here and there, because you got millions and multi-millions of those weapons out there in the within the population and people hands right now. I mean, what they have to do, if they can't violate the Second Amendment, because that's a right that's been given to us by the Constitution. Now, only way they could, if they want to do it right way, if they're really serious, like you're saying, about taking weapons away and doing it the right way, why don't they make an amendment to the Second Amendment? I mean, the Second Amendment.
Well, I think this, that if, and again, it goes back to the sickness, the mental sickness of America. If America wanted to right itself, it would start a mass movement of the mental illness in America. It would be as serious about the mental illness that afflicts this country as it was about the so-called viral illness, COVID-19. They would say, well, look, every Thursday, we're going to have, and until every person in America has been so evaluated, we're going to have a movement to evaluate psychologically everybody in this country just to see how sick we are. And then you could start talking about the guns. You could take away the gun, but then you still got people that are sick. There's knives, there's rakes, there's shovels, there's all kind of implements that can be used to kill people.
Well, Bob.
America is a violent, sick nation.
Well,
and until we reconcile ourselves with that fact, this place is going to just be every other week, you'll see somebody getting killed. And then the people, our thoughts and our prayers go out to them. We're so sorry that happened, and our prayers go to the family. That's all BS, man.
Well, that, Bob, that if you go back and you can recall back in the 1980s, up in Michigan itself, I know there, and I think it happened all over the country, because I think that was during the Reagan era. I mean, everything was trickling right on down, and they did away with all the mental outpatient facilities in Detroit area and in Michigan. And that's when you had a lot of homeless people crowding the streets and everything. And many of these people I say most of them, had mental problems and they had a place to go to get help. But they claimed they didn't have enough money to care for those people. So this is right in line of what you were talking about right there. There's to me, it appears that there's some type of procedure to try to eliminate all the mental health places for the indigenous people in this country. And then they end up on the streets out here. And then next thing you do, they want to go through with bulldozers and push them off into the dump somewhere. And I'm just wondering if that's is on the same track of what you were saying, is that we do have a country that's full of sick people mentally. But nobody's trying to do anything about it though.
The reason that they're not going to do anything about it is because they're sick. The so-called leadership, they got to first admit their own sickness, and furthermore, the people that they talk about, the homeless and the people out here that have been kicked out, they're not going into schools killing people. Then you don't. When's the last time you saw a person that was homeless walk into a school and shoot up the school and kill little kids? The people that are doing that are people, from what I've been able to see, are people that come from very structured households up in Oxford, not north of Detroit. The guy that went in there, he was a student of that school.
Oh yeah,
And a mother and a father.
exactly.
And if you look back in all of these circumstances where the people have been shooting up these schools and killing people, they come from very structured, supposedly well-managed and sane households. They're sick households.
Well, that's what
because America is sick.
Well, the reason I pointed out the people that's the homeless and the people out on the streets out there is that not to say that they were killing anybody, but that's the first line of defense, so to speak, as to when they started to loosen up and not doing much for mental illness in this country.
Yeah.
That's when they started just saying, well, we don't have any more facilities for that. Now, if you are rich and wealthy, then you got your psychiatrists out there that you can go and sit on their couch and get some consultation or whatever they do. But, I mean, your average family, I mean, they're not going to, the ones that's doing all these shootings out here, they probably need some mental health treatment as well. But
Right.
they don't have the, I mean, we living in a, excuse me, Bob, we living in a day and age here where money talks and BS walks. And if you don't have the money, you can't get it at these expensive psychiatrist places that you need to go to. And you may have insurance. You could go here and go to a place there and probably get a little help. But what about all these times that you could just go to an institution, you could take a person there and have them evaluated? You know, a lot of that stuff is gone by the wayside. That's the only thing I'm saying.
Oh, right. No, and I agree with you. I mean, look, there's 50 states.
Right.
If America was serious about its sickness, about its mental illness, you would have a Mayo Clinic devoted to mental wellness in that state. And every state would have one, just like they have universities. There's thousands of universities in the United States. You could have thousands of mental facilities for the mental illness. But the reason that they don't do that is because they don't want to admit, we don't want to admit how sick we are. Because you have to admit that the president's sick, the vice president, You look at some of the stuff that these people say on TV, man, when they're being interviewed and start cackling and slapping knees and some of the dumb shit that they say. That that's not leadership. To me, that's just a lot of nonsense. And then when people go out here and imitate, or well, first of all, well, back it's so frustrating.
Well,
Uh,
well, I understand exactly where you're going with that, Bob. But like just like you take these two young black males. I mean, I admire them for their stance, but somebody told me that they are the maturing candidates.
uh,
That they are being groomed, and
uh,
I wonder who's behind the grooming of these young men.
and
Like
being groomed for what?
politics, Bob. Politics. Just like just like you go out there and you take your kid and you groom him to play baseball, and you give him all the training and the best training, and if he loves it, he'll take it to the next level, and he'll end up being a pro.
Oh, I see.
And that's exactly what they are doing with these young men. At least that's what I've been alluded to by someone that I speak with on a pretty regular basis. And
Yes.
and if that's true, who's the handlers? If you look at, like he pointed out to me, if you look at one of these guys, I believe his name is Pearson. He looks like a young, I don't mean physical, facial likes, but the way he got his hair fixed. I believe that's Pearson. He looks like a young Al Sharpton, doesn't he?
I don't know. I have paid the attention.
Well, you know how Al Sharpton used to have his hair permed back?
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's the same way this guy does.
Yeah, he used to have his hair combed.
No, he was just permed. He wasn't no comb.
Oh, okay.
And he still had, I think he still have it the same way. This guy has his hair like that.
Oh,
But that's just one of the little characteristics that this person noted. But I also see that this young man has both of them have a lot of fire, a lot of rhetoric that they throw out there. Now, just think, if we could groom someone like that to fight for reparations for the centuries that our forefathers, grandfathers, great-grandfathers toiled and took the whippings and the beatings and the killings that they took for those hundreds of years, And we never,
absolutely. Even those two.
yeah, right. And we never got paid for it. I mean, they never got paid. And so, but the people that benefited from that back during that time period, and up until this day, they are still benefiting from it, while we still have not benefited from anything. And even the ones that did not have any slaves back then, they benefited because they were not locked down and told that you couldn't open a business that's competitive with a white business,
Right.
So and then the big railroad barons and oil barons, back during those days back then when they had slaves, when they profit from what they had, when they sold their lands and whatever, and they sold their slaves and they sold their cotton and whatever else they grew and produced. And they made millions, built banks off of them. And they tell me Wall Street first was started through the slave trade.
The what?
Wall Street was started through the slave trade. That's what in this commerce industry, commodity trading. That's what
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
that's what the slaves were.
Uh-huh.
So so we should be compensated for that. And one gentleman by the name of Bob Johnson proposed that each black in this country should get $350,000 or $24 trillion should go. And that's what whether we got that amount or whatever amount, I mean, that's what we should be galvanizing behind rather than trying to take some guns away. Because how many blacks do you see going in there shooting up schools?
That's right. That's exactly right.
I mean, we should, the thing, if you want to do something for your people, I mean, true enough, you got constituents that's white and black, and you got blacks that go to those schools as well that could get killed. So that's admirable that you're doing that. Well, let's try to get some real reparations, some real equity, for the people. That's
absolutely.
Say again, Bob.
I said absolutely. I mean, and I think you're really right on a right track, Mac. Why is it that we as black people can mobilize around, and it's not trivial, but it's trivial to us as a race? Because how many of the schools have you seen that are in black neighborhoods where black kids have gone in and shot up the school? The only place where you see blacks being killed like that is when whites or Caucasoids have moved into the neighborhoods and shot up black churches and black schools and black shopping centers. These are white people doing that. You don't see blacks doing that. You see black police officers shooting up black people, but you don't see blacks going into schools or into churches or into shopping centers. So what is the difference in us, the Negroid and the Caucasoid, that they do stuff like that on their own people and on black people or Negroid people, and Negroid people don't do it on them? So you're right. You're absolutely right. If they would focus their attention on something that could be helpful to the Negroid race, like reparations, like the almighty greenback, that's the only thing to lift people out of poverty is money.
Right.
You don't get out. You don't get out of poverty by saying "We shall overcome."
Oh,
You get out of poverty by putting money in the bank and drawing interest.
the only ones that's gonna get money out of that are those politicians and those civil rights groups that's still fighting for civil rights. Well, if we don't have any civil rights by now, we're never gonna get civil rights, Bob. So at the NAACP and all these other organizations, they should be focusing on what Martin Luther King had talked about before his untimely death: economics.
That's right. And that's why they killed him.
Exactly. And the same thing that Dr. Claude Anderson talks about: economics. I don't see any of the black organizations. We still focusing on integration. I mean, we have some issues with police, maybe. I mean, I've been stopped by police many times, Bob. But I never had any to. I was doing something wrong. I was speeding, I mean, and I took my ticket and kept going, and sometimes they let me go with a warning. But I'm saying that we can't focus on these civil rights so much as we right now. If you got economic parity with the other ethnic groups and the majority group in this country right here, if you got economic parity with them, you don't have to worry about civil rights. You know what I mean? Because you're going to
Right.
have civil. You can pay for the police just like they do. You can pay for the judges just like they do. You can pay for the politicians just like they do. So why are we so still focusing on anything other than economics after 70 years or 60 years of fighting of since the civil rights bill of the 60s was passed?
Right.
I mean, it's time now. Well, you've got right now, Bob. I look at all the number of blacks now that's 7 or 8 that's billionaires, and I don't know how many more that got hundreds of millions of dollars, and many others that's got millions, and many others that's got hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I just can't understand why is it that some of them have not taken that money and pool their resources, or even one do it by himself and go into the communities and open up small businesses in those communities and give certain blacks in there who wants to own a business an opportunity, and they to own that business, but they are working, run it. I mean, there's a strategy in how you can do that. And somebody told me, say, you should write that down. I said, I don't have to write it down. I said, Claude Anderson already wrote it down. You know?
Yeah.
So the thing it is, why aren't they all get on there and they talk? I hear them talking now about Claude Anderson. They weren't talking about him in the 90s, Bob, when we were meeting with him, you know?
Right.
But they
Sure.
all talking about it, but I don't see any of them out there doing anything. Like we gave our best shot back then, you know what I mean?
Right.
But now these younger people, much younger than we are, they have the money. And yet they just letting their they think that they are free because they got that money. Bob, you know as well as I do, that money does not make them free. If
That's right.
all blacks are free, you know and that's true. How many times have you heard about blacks who've been wealthy and they walk up to try to get their car, they pull their car up or something, and the guy says, "Oh, that's not my car." You know? Well, it's his car. You know what I mean?
Right.
But because he's black, they think he's the valet.
Right. Yeah.
But but that's what happens here, Bob. I mean, we're not focusing on trying to help each other. You find we could go and make a litany of the things that other races do and how they work together in their communities. You don't see anywhere, at least I haven't seen anywhere, where the Chinaman or the Vietnamese or the Arabs or the Cubans or the Puerto Ricans, Mexicans. I haven't seen them marching on any street, Bob. I haven't seen them march on Washington.
Right.
But what they've done, they've galvanized themselves to help each other. I seen them how they worked there in Georgia when I was down there building homes there, you know? I was using these different contractors. They always refer you to another, one of theirs. Same way the Jewish Americans did. They all shopped right within their communities. They all built right within their community, made sure. Same thing with the Cubans in Florida, Miami. They tell any other ethnic group that comes in, no, you can't set up shop here, buddy. We got this covered.
uh,
And I can't believe that we let our community become desert food deserts, and without us going in there. I'm talking about the ones with the money who can make this work, Bob. But now they'll go and spend $1 million on a yacht for a birthday party,
right,
rather than try to take 3 or 4 million and go on into the community and start opening up businesses, and they're going to give blacks jobs. I know it's hard. I'm not going to tell you, Bob, that it's easy. I've been there, you know.
right,
It's not easy because you gotta make sure you get the right ones, because we have been so uh, subjugated and so brainwashed and to the point where we don't like each other as a
right,
people, and we don't want to take orders from each other if we have to. We
right.
frown on that, and that has to change, Bob. That's where the whole community there has to be a education of the whole community through your schools, through your churches, through your community organizations, where blacks have to be taught to love one another, no matter what difficulties you've had with each other in the past. It's time to put all of that stuff aside and say, we can work together. We love you because you look like me.
Yeah,
I look like you. Why don't you love me? First of all, you got to get to love yourself. And that's the biggest problem that we've got, Bob.
right. And that's a part of that mental illness.
Yeah.
We don't love ourselves. So if I don't love me, how can I love anybody else? I mean, and and uh, and all of the self-destructive things that we do to ourselves, we then foist that on our neighbors and our friends, and primarily on those that are around us that we should love, our blood. You
Yeah.
know, but back. I think we're beyond that point. I think we have reached the point of no return. I don't see this thing changing. And going back to those two young fellows in Nashville that were standing up for the
Gun,
people
con-
that were killed
gun,
there in Nashville.
gun control.
Yeah, they I too applaud them on their enthusiasm, but I still have to say, if they had that same type of energy and focused it on helping their race uh, obtain economic parity with other races, then maybe you could have a circumstance where you'd have blacks investing with each other. Granted, you do have uh, several millions of blacks who are uh, making $1 million a year, several $1 million a year, and some even making $1 billion. But those people have got to continue to do that, or they'll be back out on the street pushing a shopping cart like the brother picking up bottles. They you look at how quickly uh that guy that was the golfer is the Tiger Woods. He was married, and when he got a divorce, he said he was a billionaire before, and they cut his. Now this is just what I read. I don't know whether this is true or not. This may be fake news, and I don't like to be saying something about somebody that's negative. But my point is that the media was saying that when he got a divorce, they cut his wealth by half, gave half to the wife and half to himself. And I noticed he's not in that group of people that is characterized as multi-billionaires today.
Well,
But that
they are saying that he and LeBron James are the only active athletes who are billionaires.
oh, are they? Oh, okay. Well, good for them.
Well, I mean, I'm happy to say he's got, but we don't know what they got, but how they count that up. Like, for instance, they said Kanye West was a billionaire, but that was because of the contracts he had with Adidas, you know? So
Uh-huh.
you don't know how they add that stuff up. When Adidas got rid of the contracts, he came back down to 400 million. But to me, that ain't nothing to sneeze at.
Right. That's right. That's still a lot of money.
That's right. I mean, he can do a whole lot of things with that. But Bob, you know, it's so interesting. But we don't. I'm not here to count anybody else's money or to tell anybody else what to do. I'm just saying this is how I notice other ethnic groups how they have achieved parity in this nation. You know,
Yes.
not to
Right.
say it's going to be perfect for them or it's perfect for us. They're still anti-Semitic. They're still anti-Mexican, anti-Asian to in this country, just like there's anti-blacks. But
Yes.
but the thing it is that you don't see them out there having to go out there and march. They sending their kids to the best universities. They got their own businesses in their communities. And the thing it is, we had the very same thing as a lot of these communities, Bob, because when you had your black bottom up there in Detroit, and you had your buttermilk uh, place out there in San Francisco, and you had down there your places in Atlanta, Georgia, there, you know, and Macon, Georgia. You had your Harlem up there, and you had your Wall Street there in Tulsa, Oklahoma. You had your Wilmington neighborhood there. I mean, we had these places all over the country, Bob,
Right.
and they were striving. You had Gaston out of Alabama that had hotels and insurance companies and everything. Man, he was doing quite well, hiring a lot of blacks. But now what? But now we've gotten off that business entrepreneurship wagon, Bob. I'm not all of us. It's many blacks out there doing quite well financially and everything. But I'm talking about with the brick and mortar buildings. We don't have any more of those brick and mortar. We don't have those gas stations, and people be surprised at some of these gas stations that turn over $3 million a year, Bob. I
Yeah.
mean, gross. So if they make 20% of that, what they got? $600,000 they bringing home, right?
Sure.
So I mean, and if they get more than that, then boom. I'm not saying all of them are making that type of money, but I know of one in particular. I knew of some other shale stations that was making that, and I can't tell you how I knew that, but but I knew, and
Yeah. Sure.
I tell you, there's a lot of opportunities there. Like everybody can't be a lawyer, everybody can't be a computer expert, everybody can't be a programmer or a coding expert because everybody don't have the. We're not gifted equally. You know what I mean? We have to figure out what we can do best and then work on that, you know, and improve upon that, and help each other to get better, you know. And it starts right there in our families, Bob. And that's where we should start at, you know. And Of course, it's hard if you, and I tell you, you'll find that some of the, if you can get your family together, you got to start there because if you can't get your family together, I mean, how you gonna get somebody that you don't even know out there together, right?
Right.
So, and that is something to tackle, Bob. But I really enjoyed your comments today, Bob. It's been great. I hope that people out there don't take us just some talking to be talking. You know
Yeah,
what
sure.
we are saying. We are serious about the things that we say here and the comments that we make based on our own experiences.
Yes.
And next week, next day or two, we're going to come back with another good topic for you. We'll get more into the maybe a little bit into the Pentagon leaks and the how some lawmakers are pushing to limit the U.S. President nuclear authority, because that is something, a topic, Bob. I think you would be interested in that we can talk about that craziness at the top.
Yeah, sure.
The mental imbalance and what can happen uh, when things when you got your leadership in that's not quite got it all together.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thanks, Bob, and I want you people to don't forget to subscribe, to like, and share this video, and we'll see you again soon. Have a good day, Bob.
You too, back. Thank you.
All right.